iPhone 17 Pro Max versus the Apple iPhone Air. Which one to buy? That is the aim of today's video. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Now, I've had the iPhone 17 Pro Max for about 2 weeks. I've had the iPhone Air for about 2 weeks, although I did take a day to go swap the sky blue to the space black. I did like this in person when I seen it. I already had ordered the sky blue, but once I seen the space black, I'm just feeling this like sleek black color option here. And I like how this plateau over here is definitely more shiny, just like the edges of the phone versus the lighter colors. Because if you look at the cloud white, the sky blue, the gold, they kind of all look the same. This to me is the most sleek looking option, but that's besides the point. Let's start this video by talking about the price points. The iPhone 17 Pro Max coming in at the same price point as the iPhone 16 Pro Max at $1199, but there is a new option for this phone you can get this year, which will take it all the way up to $2,000 if you go with the 2TB option. Now, the Air is no chump either in the price point. This thing is a $999 price tag to start. It is 256 gigs, so you do get a little bit better value in terms of storage for money, but there's a lot of sacrifices to this phone that don't necessarily make it a better option than the Max, but it is $200 cheaper. So if you did want a cheaper option phone, this is definitely going to be one of those to consider in the iPhone Air. But there's also the iPhone 17 that's even cheaper than this. But if you're looking for something premium, bigger screen, 6.5, this could be the better way to go for price point. But for a straight up phone, all in all, I think the Max gives better value for money here because it is giving you everything for just $200 more. Great battery, triple camera setup, largest iPhone screen. So it's kind of hard to argue that point right there. So price to value ratio, I think you're paying for definitely some innovation here with the iPhone Air. But for getting everything in one, I think it's worth a little more to go for the Max when it comes to the price. So let's talk about the body and the builds. Now, the iPhone 17 Pro Max is going to give you a 233 gram weight, but it also is a lot thicker, 8.8 millimeters thick versus the 5.6 millimeters thick on the iPhone Air. I mean, it's substantially different. And the iPhone Air is just a marvel of engineering right there. You can even see if we get up closer here on the buttons, how much space they had to squeeze those buttons in there. It wasn't much. So this is definitely, this is like Apple going back to Apple's roots, you know, like iPhone 10 style, just like doing something very different. Finally, we see it here. You do only have microphone holes down here, no double speaker, but you can see the USB-C just barely fits up in there. So that's definitely quite stunning that they were able to pull that off. And we do have the Fusion camera here. And around the body, it's a pretty thin and rounded phone and super lightweight. So it definitely feels like the phone that feels different this year if you want something that feels different. The Max is pretty smooth though. The edges on this phone are a lot smoother than some previous Max phones. And while it is a thick brick, it is pretty heavy. The overall phone stands out with this cosmic orange color option, the thick camera bump. The overall phone just feels like an absolute tank in the hand, and it's still smooth at the same time with the aluminum two-tone design. It's kind of growing on me at first. I'm not sure I loved it so much, and it's probably not the best looking phone still, but it's definitely growing a little bit more on me as I continue to use this day in and day out. So that's kind of like the similar Max design you're used to, but using this day to day, this thing, I wouldn't say it disappears in your pocket just because it's pretty tall. But in terms of weight, you barely feel it there. So a lot of people who want something lighter weight are really going to love this. It does feel very striking, and it feels like something I'm using that is different from Apple versus that just feels like another iPhone Max with a slightly different design. So overall, that's how I would decide on these. If you want something super lightweight that is truly stunning in the weight department and thin factor, of course go with the Air. But if you want that thicker battery, you want that long juice throughout your entire day of usage, just deal with the thickness. It's not that thick. It's still a pretty thin phone. Like, it's not 8.8 millimeters only looks thick now because we have iPhone Airs and Galaxy Edges. Before, this was just fine though. It's not like horribly huge phone compared to what you've been used to if you've been using Maxes. So I think it's going to be the better option for those people out there. In terms of actual durability though, you are looking at Ceramic Shield 2 on the front and on the rear of both of these phones right here, so that's pretty good. It's actually Ceramic Shield on the back, Ceramic Shield glass on the front, but titanium frame on the iPhone Air makes this phone quite nice and light. That titanium also looks pretty fancy around the edges. It is pretty shiny. This black one is more sleek looking versus some of the other ones, but if you want that shiny look, you can go for one of the lighter color options. But definitely, it definitely looks a little bit more fancy, I would say, than the Max, which looks more function to me. It looks more like the Beast phone, but not necessarily it's not polished edges. It is aluminum, which is technically a cheaper material. But because of the thickness, it still feels pretty durable. Both of them IP68 dust and water resistance though. All right, so let's talk about the displays. Now let's talk about what is similar. Both of these phones do actually have the same brightness levels. They had 1600 nits in high brightness modes. Usable is about 1000, and you also do have 3000 nits peak. One of the nice things about the 17 series here, if we go down here on the Pro and we hit the accessibility, go down to display settings, scroll down, you'll see this option for display pulse smoothing. So you can actually turn off pulse width modulation on these phones. So for those of you who have been waiting to get an iPhone again and you've just been holding off because that bothers your eyes, gives you headaches, that's something to note. If we go over here to the iPhone Air, you'll see that you have that same option right there. So it does seem to be enabled across the board. They're also the same aspect ratio. So what that means is that when you are opening up an application, for example, the width of the display is about the same. So there's no substantial difference in that area. Let me go ahead and lower the brightness a little bit there. So you're not going to really display substantially more content on either. Both of them do have anti-reflective coatings. I can't really show it too well because I do have screen protectors on these, and they both do have the same exact 460 pixels per inch density. They also do have Ceramic Shield 2, like we talked about earlier, with a Mohs level of 5. So they both have the same durability as well on the front. The 17 Pro Max though is a bit bigger at 6.9 inches. It is noticeably bigger actually. But the iPhone Air is no slouch either. At 6.5, this was like what the older Maxes used to be in the size. So you technically have a Max size screen, just not a 2025 version of a Max screen. You have like an 11 Pro Max size screen here with a super thin and lightweight body. So it could be the sweet spot between those people who thought 6.9 is huge, 6.3 is too small. This could be your phone right here. Some found the 6.7 to be perfect. I actually think this is the sweet spot. For those of you who want a big screen with a lightweight phone, this is the sweet spot phone right here. The pixels are actually a little bit different, but they still come out to the same resolution. And there is, even though it doesn't really look like it, there is slightly more, less screen to body on the iPhone 17 Pro Max. So essentially, you do have more screen on the iPhone 17 Pro Max, no matter how you slice it. Now, if you do take a look here on both of these phones, you will find yourself the ability to use Dynamic Island. However, anytime you have a smaller phone, I feel like it is more noticeable. So I do find that display, I will be looking at Dynamic Island just a little bit more on the iPhone Air. So if you are a media head, you love to consume content, watch your movies, your videos, go with the iPhone Max. I think it's going to be the better option. Although the Air is no slouch either, but with its weaker battery, I do think it's not the best option for continuous media sessions because it doesn't last as long. You could watch several pieces of content and have much longer life on the iPhone 17 Pro Max. You could fix that with a MagSafe battery pack though on the Air. Now when it comes to software, we are looking at iOS 26.0.1 on board, and I gotta tell you, the iOS 26 is definitely gonna take some getting used to. You'll see you do have the liquid glass design here in the control center and across the user interface. So it is a pretty big drastic overhaul that we have been wanting for quite some time, and you can see the elements definitely are pretty noticeable, especially when you start tinting and you start going clear icons over here. You are going to notice a pretty drastic difference here between some of the older versions. Also, you do have call screening on board here, and if we go over here into the App Store, let's go in the App Store, you'll see that across the UI you'll find a lot of these glass looking elements. So you'll have to get used to them, but they are definitely a visual improvement, I would say, just changing the overall iPhone look. But both of these, when it comes to operating the software, is going to be exactly the same. And they're going to have the same software support, as they both do house the same Apple A19 Pro chipset on board. So you should get the same longevity of software, but the only difference will be in the camera. You don't have as many options for the iPhone Air. So you can have different options in the camera here, which will make the Air potentially the weaker option when it comes to overall feature set. However, it does still cram that action button in there, so you can customize that action button to your liking. I'm going to make a video how to customize that on the Morning Ackerman channel, so you might want to check that out. But definitely, overall, I feel like I'm using essentially the same exact phone with just a different body and a different weight, and when it comes to the software. Now, we haven't done a proper speed test between these two, which we will do soon, but the actual performance on the iPhone 17 Pro Max has blown me away in terms of just power to heat management. Like, you can run this thing like a beast, and with those new thermals with the vapor chamber, the iPhone is finally not only a powerhouse, but a powerhouse that can stay cool to the touch. I have been really loving the 17 Pro Max for this reason. And, you know, I thought I was going to just want to be on the Air, but the novelty wears off when you start realizing that the Max can stay cooler to the touch. It can last much longer when playing even these RPG games and stuff of this sort, highly demanding games for extended sessions. The 17 Pro Max just impresses in all areas, and because of that, I definitely have to say, performance-wise, it's going to be the 17 Pro Max. And while they do both house 12 gigabytes of RAM, which is a nice upgrade for the Apple phones, as Apple has been pretty stubborn on upgrading their RAM, finally you got 12 gigs on both. The Apple A19 Pro on the right is clocked at the same speed, but it's not quite as snappy, or it's not going to hold as better performance than the 17 Pro Max because it lacks the vapor chamber. So think of this as kind of like what the iPhone would be like if it didn't have those upgraded thermals on the 17 Pro Max. So still very good, but not quite 17 Pro Max level, even if it is the same chip. They also do have a different GPU, so graphically speaking, the iPhone 17 Pro Max will win when we start pushing it in a benchmark and stuff of that sort, or gaming. However, I would wager that most people are not going to be using an iPhone Air or buying it for the area of gaming. I do feel like people are buying this definitely are not mostly gamers. I would almost bet that's the case. Let me know your thoughts down below. And that's not to say you can't play games. It's just, why would you, if you're going to play a lot of games, I mean, besides some casual stuff, your battery's just not great on the Air to make that a worthwhile investment. And when it comes to cameras, there's absolutely no comparison. The iPhone 17 Pro Max just beasts all over the iPhone Air. It's a beast mode compared to that phone. You got the 2 times, 4 times, 8 times, and all the way up to 40. We're going to zoom in on that tech woven case right there. It's not going to show up really good right there because I'm too close, but definitely a lot of zoom abilities on this phone. If we go over here to video, you do have 4K 120 options, Pro Raw Res, cinematic modes, spatial video, panoramic modes, but on the front, they both do house the same front-facing camera. I think it comes down to, like, do you want that versatility or not? Because if you're okay with these close-up shots, the iPhone Air is plenty enough, I think, for most users. You can even do the 35 and 26 millimeter lens swaps. It does kind of feel like you have a dual camera, but it doesn't feel like you have the ultra wide. Some people argue, well, you know, the regular camera is already wide enough. You don't really need an ultra wide. Still, it's 2025, and not seeing a dedicated ultra wide lens on this phone is just a little bit weird to me. I would have liked to seen it. Now, if we have the aspect ratio, you could change that, different styles. This also has portrait mode, but I don't see the spatial option. It does have video there, but not going to do the same 4K 120. Also, you know, this does have one speaker, so when you're listening to your video playback, it's not going to sound quite as good as the iPhone 17 Pro Max. And so from the camera department, if you're just a general everyday photo taker doing some social media shots, you need a really good front-facing camera, you want that lightweight and good quality video, this is going to be plenty enough for you. But it just doesn't pack the same versatility. So the Max is an easy recommendation if the camera is very, very important to you. If it's still important to you, but it's not like your primary reason for buying a phone, then the Air definitely should be a consideration, because it still does have 4K 60 HDR, video. It does have the 48 megapixel fusion, so it's still really, really solid. It's just nowhere competing with an iPhone 17 Pro Max. Now, the next area where the iPhone 17 Pro Max will be the option is battery, but I want to dive a little bit more into who should buy this one. I got to tell you, the iPhone 17 Pro Max is clearly the phone for the power user. It's clearly the phone for the all-day heavy road warrior, the one using their phone for everything. You're relying on it for your job. You're relying on it for GPS. You don't have access to a charger all the time, nor do you want to carry MagSafe. And, you know, you can carry those battery packs, but do you want to? If you don't, you just want to keep the phone how it is. That's going to be the option for you. Now, the iPhone Air, this phone surprisingly lasts all day for even moderate to heavy use, but it's definitely not going to be the best option for long usage. I would equate this to something like the Apple Watch, like the smaller, sleeker Series 11, or an Apple Watch Ultra. The Max would be the Ultra. The Air would be like the Series 11. It's basically like a lot less battery life, but much thinner, much lighter, much sleeker. Like the Ultra, it's thicker, bulkier, but you're getting all that battery life. So you got to know who you are as a user and how much you're willing to deal with that. Personally, I think if you're not away from your house like super long hours all the times at all days, I think the Air is fine. And if you have a car charger, you're on your commute, you'll be getting charged if you plug in for Apple CarPlay. If you have wireless CarPlay, you can still plug in and charge at the same time with your 12-volt outlet. Or you can, again, just slap that MagSafe on and it's no problem. So the Air is not really a battery issue. It's just this one is just ridiculously good. Like 5,000 plus milliamp. This one's just a little bit over 3,000. So you just can't compare them. There's just no comparison. It's the Max all day if you want battery life. A couple other notes to make about this phone. The iPhone Air doesn't charge as fast as the iPhone 17 Pro Max, so that's another sacrifice. It does have the same Face ID, but at the same time, it does have a weaker speaker. We have one up here, none down here. This is a big omission. I don't like this for the Air, especially if you do use your speakerphone for calls, use it for music. It's just not loud. It just sounds kind of weird for this year, like 2025. They should have crammed or found a way to cram that second speaker in some way. They could get this super thin factor and pretty impressive engineering, but we couldn't find a way to get the speaker in there. That's a setback to me. So the next Air needs to have that for sure. This one, on the other hand, booms. It sounds amazing on both top, bottom speakers. Just like previous Maxes, 16 Pro Max, 15 Pro Max, those are still going to sound better than the Air. So audio-wise, you're going with the iPhone 17 Pro Max. That's my recommendation right there. They both do have emergency SOS, pretty good network performance. So overall, there's no really qualms or complaints there on that one. So let me give you my final verdict between these two. I do think some people, coming from older iPhones may want to consider one or the other. Like, can I get by with the Air or should I get the Max? Are you a heavy user? If you are, just get the Max, honestly. Are you a medium user and you want lightweight, you're tired of thick phones, but you want a bigger screen, but you don't want a thick phone with a bigger screen? Get the Air. You'll be totally happy. Are you a user who values the look of your phone a little bit more of a fashion piece? Get the Air. You'll be happier. If you value, though, function over form, I would say get the iPhone 17 Pro Max. If you value form over function, get the iPhone Air. It's just no doubt about it that that's the way to go for stuff like that. I do think the 17 Pro Max is going to vastly outsell the Air because people do buy phones mostly as a tool, and they're going to want the better battery life. They're going to want the better camera. And I think people are going to overlook, oh, it's thin, but what does it do for me? And if it doesn't give me good battery, I think they're just going to wait until Apple improves the Air to a point where it has longer battery life, maybe goes with a silicon carbon style battery, and has a dual camera on board with a speaker back on the bottom. So once they make those improvements, I think the Air will get more popular. But right now I do like it because it is Apple doing something different. I like this direction they're going while still keeping their bread and butter, the 17 Pro Max. So let me know your thoughts on these two. Which one are you going to go with? And let us know down in the comments if you have any more questions, concerns. People will chime in, help you out. Some people about the Air will let you know what they think of it as well. So let's get the chat going down in the comments. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I will catch you on the next episode. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.